All right, in this tutorial, we're going to look at creating a EDI map that translates from JSON format to an X12 850 format. We're going to create a real simple JSON file, and we're going to create all the necessary configurations to process that file. We're going to create the map, and then we're going to look at the output. But we're going to do this from start to finish as if this is a new requirement. So we're going to construct everything from the beginning. Currently we're on version 6.4.10 of BlueSeer. And here the objective obviously is to create a simple JSON file and to create the maps for it and all the necessary configurations, and then look at the processing of it. And these are the action items that we're going to go through to make that happen. We're going to create the JSON file first, and we're going to create that by hand. We're going to create the structure file that BlueSeer requires to that represents that JSON text file that we created. These nav codes are the menu codes, the shortcut menu codes that you can get to these specific menus to do these jobs. Then we're going to look at document recognition records, which we're going to create document recognition rules that will allow us to recognize this new JSON file that we have. Remember, JSON formats can be, the formatted file can be of any structure and any type. So we have to provide the BlueSeer engine enough rules so that it can recognize what this is, so that it can call the appropriate map. And speaking of maps, we're going to create a map for it. We're going to create a trading partner record for this example, and then a partner transaction association record for this example. And then finally, we're going to process the sample file through the engine, and then we're going to look at the output. Now, before we get started, I want to show you, when you download BlueSeer, it actually comes with a default JSON file, sample file, and a default map. And I'll show you that real quick. So if you type in map, choose the map source. The map name is BS-JSON to 850. And this map is already here, but for this type of structure. So if we look at the input file, and it's in sample data, so it's under the EDI directory under sample data, and it's called Acme JSON order. And this is a more complex structure, a JSON structure of an order. But this is provided with the default installation of BlueSeer, so is the map, and you can actually just run this map as soon as you download the application. And then you will get the BEG CTT segments over here. Again, the output 850 is very simple. The envelope tags are not here because that's part of the enveloping process. But the BEG to the CTT is provided here. So all this stuff is here for you to review and to look at and to learn from just by downloading the BlueSeer software application, because it comes default with it. Okay, so let's get started on our actions here. The first thing we want to do is create a simple JSON file, and it's going to be a lot more simpler than this guy here. And so we're going to do that by opening up a text editor. We're going to go to the EDI in directory, EDI in, and we're going to delete that file there. Don't need that. Delete. We're going to create an empty file. We're going to call it a JSON file. .text is fine. And then we're going to open it up with the text editor, and we're going to hand stitch this very simple JSON file that represents the JSON formatted order as if it was an 850. So JSONs are nothing more than key value pairs, essentially. Every tag is a key, and then every tag or key has a value to it. And most of the time the values are strings and the tags are represented as strings in quotes. So we're going to create an ordered tag, and in that the value, the key and the value, this being the key and this being the right hand side being the value, we're going to create fields. Call it PO number, then a value for it, PO123. So in this situation, we got an order tag here. This key, this JSON object here, has a value that will be several fields and it'll be children fields up underneath this order tag. So we've got a PO number, a tag, and this is the PO value. Then each one of these objects are sort of separated by commas. So another field in the order tag would be PO date. And this value would be 2023 0101. It's fine. And then another simple one would be, what's another field? A sender ID. And its tag value is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then maybe one more JSON type tag. And we'll call it a JSON EDI as the value. Okay, so that's the field tags up underneath the order parent tag. And so, comma, and then we're going to create another one for the detail, for items. Put items. Now this one's going to be an array of objects. So let's first create the object itself. Item number would be a field inside this essentially record tag of items. And we're going to call it part 123. And then another field could be quantity. And this value is a 55. You can put 55 without the quotes, but I like putting the quotes on it. Then another one will be price. Another field will be price, and this value will be 3.45. And then we'll close that one, and we'll create another object with the same stuff on it. Let's stretch this guy out a little bit here so we can see everything. And take off that comma. So we've got items row 1, items row 2. Let's change these to 555 just to make them distinct. Quantity of 77 and a quantity of, or a price of 9.22. Okay, so since these are multiple objects within this value, we need to create an array of that. So the array is done by square brackets. And that should do that. And then we're going to close the whole overall parent tag. And that should suffice right there. So that's a simple JSON file that has header information and it has detailed information with 2 line items in it. So we're going to click File Save. And we're going to leave this up because we're going to have to create a structure file for it too. So let's go over to EDI Structure. And we're going to start off with JSON Generic Order CSV. This comes with default, but we're going to grab some of the opening tags of it. We're going to cut and paste this, the first 3 or 4 lines. And we're going to create a new structure. We're going to call it new struct.text. And now the structure file, I have tutorials on how to create structure files, and unfortunately you have to create structure files from by hand from a text editor. At some point we'll be able to create these with the BlueSeer product itself. So the structure file essentially represents, in this layout, represents what this JSON file looks like. I'll just open up the JSON file. Where am I at here? Or have I lost it? I'll have to go back and open it up again. So let's pull him over here. Let's go back here to the end file. Oh, I see what it's doing. It's putting him in the same. Okay, never mind. Okay, so here's the JSON file that we created, and here's the new struct file that we have in our directory, structure directory. Okay, so we need to make this structure file represent this JSON file, and every parent tag that has fields is considered a landmark, and then every one of these tags, PO number, PO date, are considered fields of the order tag. Same thing with the items. This is a landmark, and then these are fields within the landmark. So what we're going to do is, we know that the order and PO number is the first field of it. So we have order already. You can use this information as default. The first field of this, which is a non-landmark, which is a field, will be PO number. It is case sensitive, by the way, and you can leave the description out. This field here is a description field. The second value, I wish I had opened this up. Can I move to new window? There we go. That's even better. So now, the second field is PO date. So we're going to make that PO date. Take out the description. Don't worry about the beginning and length of characters here. It's primarily for positional files. JSON is not a positional file. And then we're going to create one more for sender ID and JSON, or two more for JSON type. So the other third field was sender ID. The fourth field is JSON type. Control C. Okay, now we're going to create one for the items, a landmark for the items. Items. And then we're going to create fields for the items. So we'll copy one of these fields here. Get started. This first is the actual parent tag, and this is the element underneath it. So our first field in the items is item number. And we're going to copy him two more times for quantity field and for price field. So quantity and then price. And then that's it. There's more detail here as far as these extra fields, and I won't go into that now, but this is a structure file that represents this JSON file. So we're going to do file save and file save, which you should have already saved that. Now, going back to our presentation, we created a simple file, we've created a structure file, but we also need to register it in BlueSeer. So we're going to go to MPSM, go to Home, type in MPSM, and we're going to register the structure file we just created, and it has to be the exact name of the structure file in the structure directory. So we're going to click New. I think we called it new struct.text. This is a test. Its document type is going to be 850 JSON, the document type being the BlueSeer document type, and they're all relative to X12, but the latter characters tell what kind of format that it is. So this is a JSON formatted order file, 850 JSON, and it is a JSON file type. Let's say we got the name wrong and we did that, and you click add, it's going to say file cannot be found. So you have to add the exact file name. It doesn't have to be the path, because it knows to go into the EDI structure path, but the file name has to be exact. Okay, now that took it. So if we go look here, we should have a file. Yeah, there it is, new struct. All right, we have that. Now let's go to what was our third? Okay, now we need to create document recognition records. So we created the JSON file, we created the structure file of the JSON file. Now we have to create recognition rules in EDDM. There are already samples in here of other records that we have. If you look at this 850 JSON here, this is the generic one that comes with the implementation. And these are some rules here, but we're going to create a new one. And we're going to call it mydoc. And we're going to, or let's call it myJSON. And a sample JSON recognition rules. And the type is going to be the 850 JSON. And then the structure file should be the structure file we just created. And there it is, new struct. This other stuff here you can leave blank. Now we need to create a selection rule and a few data rules. The selection rule essentially allows this engine to recognize the format of that JSON that we created. So we're going to click selection, which is the role. This is going to be a JSON record type, and we're going to leave that as constant. So to recognize various paths, we're going to use XPath to recognize certain tags in a JSON file. Now, you remember our main tag was order. We had a field in there called, what did we call it? EIN. One of the fields, well, you can choose any one of these fields. Sender, let's choose the sender, JSON type would be a good one. you can choose any field that you want as long as it's in the record. So JSON type was the name of the tag that's in this path. Is parent, is order, and then the child is JSON type. Now you can actually look for a specific value, like the value in here was called EDI, if I remember. It was called JSON EDI. So you can look for that explicitly and put that in the values. Or if you just want to say the existence of this tag represents this type of file, then you can just put star. So as long as I find an order and a field called JSON type, then the engine will know that this is this type of file. So we're going to do that. Enabled, I need to click enabled, here it is. Make sure that it's enabled here and click add item. Oh, row, column, these need to be 0. I need to change that in development so it defaults to it. Add item, and there it is. And then we're going to add a few more. We're going to do data roles, which assign certain global variables to the engine. And this is going to be JSON as well. And this is going to be a variable. And we're going to the tag, we're going to create the receiver ID. Receiver ID, RCV ID, and it must be exactly this for receiver ID. There's really two variables, receiver ID and sender ID. If they send a sender ID in the file, that's great. If not, you can always hard code it. So as soon as it recognizes this file, it knows the receiver ID is going to be value BlueSeer. Because you always have to have a sender and receiver ID at least recognized in the file. This is going to be a constant, by the way, since we're making a constant. And we're going to click add item. And then the sender ID we're going to get from the content. There's a variable, and the content was in order sender ID. So it's going to look and find this tag and grab this value and assign that to the sender ID tag. And then click add item. And that's it. So we've got 2 data rules and 1 selection rule. And then click add. Now, we don't have a map yet, but let's actually see what the engine thinks about this file that we create based on the rules that we created. So we're going to do EDI menu, EDI load, and there's our file. You can click on it and actually see the file. We're going to click load, and we're going to choose no delete archive because we don't want to move it out the way just yet. And we're going to click run and see if the engine recognizes it. It did recognize it. So let's go over to address, EDI menu, EDI log, click run, and you'll notice it found the partner. If you click on this basket, you'll see that it actually identified the processing rule that we created. We created a recognition rule called myJSON. And so from that, it was also able to get the receiver ID of BlueSeer and the sender ID of 999. So for example, if I went and I changed that sender ID, which I already have a sender ID in the system for that. If I change the sender ID in the file to 9998, file save, and I come back and I process it again, refresh, click that, click run. It recognized the file type at least. However, it didn't recognize the partner because I don't have that partner set up. Now what it did do is it did recognize the fact that the JSON ID was the processing rule, the recognition rule was that. Here, let's click, it says already up. We don't have a trading partner ID set up for 9998. There it is. So we'd have to set that up, and that's one of the things we're actually going to go through. We already had by default a trading partner in there called 999 all nines. So we'll have to set up a partner, which I think is the next action. No, we're going to create the map first. Actually, we're just going ahead and create this trading partner record first. So address, EDI, menu, partner maintenance, new, my company, some company, some code, some company, and its alias ID is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and an 8. That's going to be the default. Click add item, click add. Now let's go back and load that again. Refresh, run, and it should have recognized my code. and it did, or Sumco, I'm sorry. So if you look at the information here, it recognized Sumco as the parent partner, and it recognized the trade ID. So it got all the way down to the point, but it could not find a map. So we need to create a map, and then we need to register the map. So now let's go create the map. All right, we're going to type in map. Just kind of recap where we are. We created this JSON file. We created a structure for the JSON file. We created the partners that represent that file. And now we're going to create a map for that file. We're going to click New. The inbound file structure is the structure we just created called New Struct. The outbound will be the standard 850 X12. And then everything else is default. And then click this Add button here. Oh, I need to actually give it a map name. Sumco map. And that's going to be the map name. Once you click in there, it'll take this value and put that as the map name. And test. And then we're going to click this. And then we're going to open up that map that we just created, which is basically just a shell of a map. There it is, Sumco. Okay, so let's open up our input file on this side. If you look at the structure, by the way, it should already get occupied for you. So you click on the structure tab, go to structure, and it provides the structure file that we created. Now let's grab our input source. Input, that's in the in directory. There it is. Let's go over here and get our output structure. And so we're going to create some BEG tags and some PO1 tags just to get a simple example going here. Let's go back to the output. So I do have other tutorials that go into more detail on these actual methods that you use. Everything is text-based. It's not a drag and drop like some EDI mapping editors. It is all text-based. And there's pros and cons associated with that. But everything is in here. There's no extended rules. There's no extra coding that some people provide on links where it's a separate phase other than the linking. Everything is actually built right in here. And it's really it's really a matter of map a segment, the target segment, the target field with the value you're putting in. And you just repeat that over and over and then commit the segment you're doing. So let's do the BEG segment first. So we're going to just cut and paste this guy. Come down. We're going to map PO number to, I think it's the third element. So we're going to map BEG. That's going to be our output here. The third element is the PO number. The field is E03. E03. You can find that here. So this is the BEG segment. This is the third field, E03. It's the purchase order number. And we're going to get our input from order, or from PO number. Actually from the order tag, the order parent tag, and his first, second, or third field. We want the first field. And then we're going to hard code the first and second ones. So we'll put that up at the top. So the first one will be just 00, if I remember right. This one will be NE. This is element 2. And then we can put a date in there as well. So in the date field is where purchase order, the date's the 5th field. And we're going to grab that from the input as well. We're going to grab that from the PO date field, which is the second field in the, it's the second field in the structure file. So if you look at the structure file in the order, field number 1 is PO number, field number 2 is PO date. So that's enough. We should, now let's just commit that segment. And then you do the same thing for other segments. So this is just one header tag, and let's actually compile this, if it will compile. So click the coffee cup. Well, first let's save. Then click the coffee cup. And the output will tell you the compilation was successful. If there was an error, for example, if you left off a semicolon here and you click compile, you'll get an error message telling you where the error is and what the error message is. So we'll put the semicolon back on, click compile, click save. And then we're going to execute this, just this here, and just see what we get in the output. So click the little lightning cloud here. And there we go. There's our PO number, and there's the date that we had actually in the data. So we can do the same thing for several other header tags, but what we're going to do is go down to the item looping, and we're going to do a little bit of code here now. This is where, if you have a coding background, particularly a Java coding background, you need to understand the concepts of loops and actually variable assignments. So here we're going to create a counter for how many times these items loop. So integer item loop equals get group count, and it's the items tag. So we're going to, how many times does this items, how many fields are inside this, how many fields loop as a group inside these items is what this is. And we're going to assign it to this value. By the way, all these functions are inherent within BlueSeer or specific to BlueSeer. You can see all these methods if you just click list methods, and then all the methods are provided here. Let's go back to this. So now what we're going to do is, let's clear that. Now we're going to loop through these for integer I equals 1. We're going to be 1 based here instead of 0 based. I less than or equal to item loop I plus plus. And this is standard, just standard code for creating a structure loop. Okay, we're going to basically do the same thing here. We're going to create the PO1 segments for every item that we have in our items tag. So instead of here, this is going to be the PO1. So if you go down to the structure file, there's PO1s down in here. You can hit Control F and search for things. PO1, 1240 occurrences at EDI. And they should be highlighted for you. There they are. So here, clear highlights. So we're going to just assign just a couple of things. The quantity field, the price field, 2 and 4, and then 6 and 7. So we're going to do a PO1, element 2, and we're going to give it the value of get input. You have to give it the loop, so it's 3 parameters here instead of 2. Parameter is I. We're going to pull the items, comma, and then the element. And the quantity is in element number 2, field number 2. Here you have to actually, you shouldn't have to qualify that with items. That should actually automatically show up. We'll test that. We'll kill that, kill these 2, and then we'll create it from here. So that's the quantity field. We're going to do the we're going to do the price field, and then an item qualifier and the item itself. So this guy, we're going to just hard code him. VN, we'll call it VN for vendor part number. I'm missing a quote here. Matter of fact, I'll leave that for instructions. So get MP, and this is going to be the 4th element. 1, 2, 3. It's going to be the 3rd element. We're going to get the 3rd field of the items structure. That'll be in element 4. Element 6. Is it 6? Yeah. Element 6 will be our qualifier. Element 7 will be our item number. And our item is item number here. Item number C. And it's the 1st element. And then we're going to commit that segment. Click Save, click Compile, and it should complain. Did I click Compile? I did not. Oh. Yeah, because I'm missing this here. On line here, line 15. So I'm missing a closing parentheses on both of these. All 3 of these, as a matter of fact. Now click Compile again, save, compile, and we have success. So now let's run this and see what we get, and see if we have any problems. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. And so I should get 2 PO1s out on the right hand side. Compile again, and then and I do. I get 77,922. I get the latter one. So what's the problem here? I think it's because I didn't qualify these here. Items, item 1, 2, PO1. Oops. What is this? Let's look at the overlay. Oops, it's the inbound file, in directory. And this just overlays the actual raw file with the structure file. So let's see what the item number here. It recognizes as items. That's just the items. So it should be just an items. Oh, then all of them are looping as one. Why? Oh, I know why. Okay, we need to go back to our structure file because I did not set this as a grouping type loop. So let's open up our structure file. Well, I'll show you here. If you look at the structure file here, go back to structure. This should be set to yes because it's a grouping segment. The order only loops one time, but this guy loops as a group multiple times. So that should be yes. Fortunately, I can't set it here. I got to set it in the raw file. Go to structure, new struct, set him to yes. File save. Come back. We'll refresh this structure, and it's set to yes. Now let's save, compile, and run. There we go. That's what we're looking for. So it gets the quantity, the items, the price, and the part numbers. So that's it. Now you can add the CT segments. You can put in REF segments, CT segments, etc. We'll put in an REF segment here real quick. For example, we'll take this guy here and we'll just hard code it. We can use the type field that we had. REF element 1 and 2. The first element we're going to just make it a ZZ because I don't know what the qualifier should be for what's our input look like. We're going to take this. I tell you, let's make it VR for vendor code, and then we're going to actually take the sender ID and we're going to grab that and put that in the REF. So we're going to get input from order element 1, 2, or 3, element 3. And then that should create the ref tag. So save, compile, and there's our REF tag. So there's a lot of things you can do with that. To go back to this here, you can actually put the name of the field in the get input. You can't do it down here at the grouping level, but you can at the header level. So this was supposed to be the PO number. So you can actually just type in PO number, and it should grab it by name instead of by field position. Click save, click compile, and it does. It gets it. One thing to note, everything in here is case sensitive, and I mean everything. From the file to the structure to the maps, everything is case sensitive, so be very careful with your cases. So we saved that, so now we have a map, and with the map name is Sumco map. So now let's go back to what was our action items here. We need to create, we've done the partner, we need to create a partner transaction record. And then we can actually process this guy all the way through. So let's go back to, what is the partner map transaction code? EDPD. So we're going to go to home, type in EDPD, and click new. And we should have our part, here's our Sumco partner we just created. We're going to choose a dot key of 850 JSON. And we're going to choose a map of Sumco map, which should be occupied right here. We do need to put in our receiver ID, which we hard-coded to BlueSeer in the recognition rules. Put a qualifier in it for them. Since we're definitely creating X12, this stuff needs to be there. The output side of the map is going to be X12, so this stuff it needs to be there. And the sender ID was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that right? Let's see that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A little more. And give him a ZZ. On the outbound tab, we need to make sure we've got the elements. The element separator for X12, we're going. I think it's what is the star 42. 42, you have to put integers in these fields here. The segment was, we're going to call it new line. I think I can just put it in NL. Can't remember, oh, sorry, put it in the wrong field. Oops, no, I can't. Segment is 10, if I remember right, for new line. And then the limiter is 62, which I think is greater than sign. Yeah, that'll be fine. The new line doesn't show up here because it's a white space. Then the prefix file of our output file is going to be sumco out, sumco JSON 2850. That's going to be the prefix of the output file. Suffix can be txt. File path, you can put something in here that would override the default path of EDI out. And these other stuff is arbitrary. If you click, you don't want to click acknowledgement or anything else here, because really the input file is JSON. If it was an 850 coming in, you would click acknowledgement to get the 997 back out. So that's all we need to do. Go back to the main tab and click add, and the record has been added. So now we should be able to process things from A to Z. This brand new file, so go back to EDI load. Let's actually look at the log file first. And we'll notice that it is never successful. So hopefully we get a green check mark on the next one. EDI load, refresh. Still don't want to delete it. Click run. Record has been committed. What kind of color did we get here? And we got a green check mark, which means that it was able to find the map, found the map, sumco map, and then the map the transaction map successfully. If you click document log view and click run again, this hide text, you will also see additional fields here, but you also see the inbound file, and you can also see the outbound file that we created. And so there it is. It's even got the envelopes on it too as well. The segment count should be 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That looks good. So this is the raw file. Now this file is also generated in the EDI output directory since it was successful. So if we go to EDI out, we should see the file. And there it is with our prefix file name and our suffix. If you click on that, there's your file. So this is a real quick, simple example of taking a very simple, and I mean very simple JSON file and translating that through the BlueSeer software application into a 850 X12. So that is it. That was a lot to cover. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to one of these three sites. Our website is BlueSeer.com. If you have a JSON file that you would like to, for me to demonstrate a translation from that JSON file to whatever document, feel free to send me that. Just send it to support@BlueSeer.com. I'll get it and we'll go from there, see what we can do for it. You can also go to the project source site at github.com, BlueSeer ERP. Again, BlueSeer is a free application. It's an open source application. You can download it at BlueSeer.com. There's download information there. There's also a documentations tab. The documentation is falling behind the development portions of it. But I'm trying to work on that to get that up to speed as well. Okay, thank you.